Under the Silver Lake has lived in my head since I saw the trailer in 2018. I love mystery. I love looking deeper into the meaning of things. I love weird, unexplainable journeys. I love weird characters. It checks every box for me. I originally talked about this movie in 2023 when I did a 3-part series on it. I've overthought that series to the point where I came to the conclusion that this movie means so much to me that I need to go back and do things better. I keep thinking about this line from the movie. I think it's fucking ridiculous to assume that media has just one purpose, because there are so many different ways to view this movie. So many clues and hidden items and scenes that sometimes lead to something and sometimes don't. Writer and director David Robert Mitchell explained, one of the things it was inspired by was graphic adventure games from the 80s and 90s. You get seemingly common objects that you wouldn't think have a purpose. As the main character in the game, you assume that this object has a grand purpose. The truth is, sometimes it's completely meaningless, and sometimes it needs to be combined with something in order to unlock something deeper within the story. All this for me to say, I want to talk about all of this movie and give it a go. As I'm beginning to write this, I don't know exactly how I'm going to cover this film, but I genuinely want to cover literally everything I can, no matter how long it takes. I'm prepared to talk about the obvious, the not so obvious, the accurate, the inaccurate, and since the last time I talked about Under the Silver Lake, the subreddit has reopened, which was very active around the time of the film's release, has since died down, but it's a goldmine of accurate and inaccurate takes. Things that even opened my eyes over the years. To give a very, very, very basic, bare-bones description of the movie we're getting into, Under the Silver Lake is about a character named Sam, played by Andrew Garfield. He's a loser creep who is obsessed with finding hidden messages, symbols, and codes in things. He falls for a girl named Sarah who goes missing, and he goes on a bizarre hunt through Los Angeles to find her and solve her disappearance. It's like Rian Johnson's Brick on steroids, but a bit different. It's almost like the ultimate anti-noir film. It sets up all the noir tropes and elements, and then rips the rug out from under you and changes everything. Like I kind of mentioned, throughout the movie there are hidden codes and meanings for the audience to unravel with our protagonist, as well as things to figure out about him. There's a lot of commentary on Hollywood, the treatment of women, male obsession, and influence of pop culture and media. It's no wonder this movie was delayed and kind of thrown under the rug, or should I say thrown under the Silver Lake. I'm sorry, I'll stop, by A24. It was screened at the 2018 Cannes Film Festival and received mixed reviews, some saying it was too ambitious and self-indulgent. The release date shifted from June 2018 to December 2018, which would have been perfect for Oscar buzz in my opinion, but then shifted again to April 2019. By the time it was released in the US in April 2019, it had a physical media release in other countries, and was already available online to anyone sailing the high seas. A24 totally botched the release of this movie. I don't necessarily think they buried it, I think they just kind of didn't know what to do with it. Plus, if you can't tell by my own personal obsession and the fact that it had a crazed subreddit that had people searching Los Angeles for clues, this movie requires multiple viewings to fully decode and understand everything that's going on. Like the Morse code in this movie, how is anyone supposed to decode that in a movie theater? I'll get into everything as we go along. Morse code, copial graffiti, countless deciphering, anything you can imagine. So let's walk through this masterpiece and go deep under the Silver Lake. Before we begin, I want everybody to like, subscribe, and comment to help us defeat the algorithm gods. Everything helps, and even if you don't have anything to say, just comment whether or not you think Sam is the dog killer. I appreciate every bit of interaction, and I love discussing your thoughts and theories on the films they cover. So from the offset of this movie, before we even see a frame of it, I think it's important to point out that in an interview, David Robert Mitchell said that this movie takes place from Sam's perspective of Los Angeles, and we'll come to find out that he's not a good person. So as we go on, I want to make it clear that this is from Sam's perspective, and he's an unreliable narrator. So I'm not sure how involved he was in the making of this movie, but Kevin Knight was consulted by David Robert Mitchell to help with some of the hidden codes in the film. Kevin Knight was part of a team of people who cracked the copial cipher, a 105-page manuscript that went 260 years undeciphered. The copial cipher used a complex substitution code including symbols and letters in place of text and spaces. This is important for a few reasons. One being that David Robert Mitchell spared no expense in trying to hide things throughout the film. And two, copial graffiti is inside of this film. Never mentioned, but if you look hard enough, it's there to discover. The hidden messages and codes are apparent from the get-go. A unicorn, a tiger, a snake, and a lion flash at the beginning of the movie, to the sound of Never My Love by the association. If we take the first letter of the animals, we get UTSL, or Under the Silver Lake. Essentially, this is our title card. Never My Love gives us a nice look into the mindset of our main character, Sam. It's about how his love for a particular woman will never fade. The lyrics, "What makes you think love would end when you know that my whole life depends on you," describe his obsession with multiple women throughout the film. We're smacked in the face with graffiti being cleaned up by a woman that reads "Beware the Dog Killer." While there are many theories we'll delve into about the dog killer, it's worth pointing out that the words are mirrored, and there is what seems to be an arrow in the G telling us to beware the God Killer. Jumping way ahead, this could refer to the elites who strive to ascend to a better world that is exclusive and real, but isn't heaven. They won't live among God when they die, because they will live as kings. This also comes back later on, where we learn about the book Under the Silver Lake, about an actor who is jealous of animals, in particular, Teddy the Wonder Dog. He blames dogs for his failed life, which doesn't really make sense, because why would a human actor think that a dog took his career? But if we replace dog with God, then it would make more sense. He's mad at God for his failures. Dog could also be a stand-in for women, which I think is the main meaning behind it, and we'll see more evidence of that as we go on. As you can see, there are a bunch of double meanings in this movie, as well as some misleading stuff that maybe doesn't mean anything. Moving on, as we pan around the diner, this fine-looking gentleman is wearing a shirt with these animals on it. If we take the first letter of all these animals, we get "Beware the Dog Killer." The music fades into this dreamy kind of music as we meet Sam, the dog killer graffiti looming over him. Perhaps he is the dog killer. I also think the name Sam is very intentional too, referring to the son of Sam, David Berkowitz, who attacked 13 people and killed 6 of them. He claimed that his neighbor's dog was telling him to kill people. There are just a lot of dog coincidences that will be occurring throughout the movie. Andrew Garfield said that they actually filmed this scene 3 different ways, with him having a different internal thought process. One being that Sam is the dog killer, one being that he is, but he does it when he's asleep, so he's unsure if he's the dog killer, and one being where he isn't the dog killer. So they definitely played around with the idea of him being the dog killer, whether he is or isn't. Sam's shirts are also something important to watch out for as we venture through the film. Here he's wearing a blue shirt with the 1982 video game Jungle Hunt, or Jungle King, on it, which features a Tarzan-like character venturing through the jungle to save a woman. It speaks for itself if you know the plot to this movie. Sam is watching 2 women, one with blonde hair and one with black. This is also very intentional if you know the characters of Sarah in this movie and Sam's ex-girlfriend. Sarah has blonde hair, his ex-girlfriend has dark hair. The coffee menu has some kind of code on it, but I want to put that in our back pocket because it'll come back later. David Robert Mitchell brought back Disaster Piece from his previous film, It Follows, to do the score for this film, which I think he does a great job of putting like this dreamlike feel over the movie, as well as feeling like we're kind of just meandering through the movie. Our first look at Jesus and the Brides of Dracula is given here from a magazine. They're one of my favorite fictional bands, and they perform one of my favorite fictional songs ever, Turning Teeth. Through the Trees from Jennifer's Body is definitely up there, among my favorite fictional songs too. To add to this dreamlike state we're in, as Sam walks home, a squirrel falls from a tree and dies right in front of him. While this can happen, squirrels can typically survive falls that would kill most animals. I've seen different interpretations of the squirrel scene, some as simple as it just being a bad omen. One could be that as a reference to the cop who falls to his death at the beginning of Alfred Hitchcock's film Vertigo. One theory I really like, it just confirmed that the things we see in this movie are through Sam's eyes. He suffers from depression, and he thinks that the squirrel was placed there to kind of make him feel worse. Which is confirmed when we see from Sam's point of view, the squirrel looks directly at him before it dies. When in reality, it could just be a random dead squirrel that he came across. Another theory I really liked was that it's just a symbol for Sam being a squirrel chasing a nut throughout the movie, which, very possible as well. Sam goes to his apartment, where he has a note left for him by his landlord telling him he has 5 days left to pay his rent. Sam lives in apartment number 23. The 23 enigma is actually a belief that the number 23 has some major significance. Like how babies get 23 chromosomes from each parent, it takes 23 seconds for blood to circulate through the body, among other things. It's thought to be a very important number. I think it's just a case if you look hard enough for something, you'll find it. But I definitely think that the usage of 23 is intentional for this reason. Also, if we take 2 plus 3, we get 5, which Sam has 5 days left to pay his rent. There's a lot of weird coincidences like this throughout the movie, so this is just a heads up. Sam is sitting on the balcony of his apartment watching his topless neighbor. So yeah, he's a creep who watches women. Sam's phone rings. The ringtone is the song The Wastelands from the Last Ninja video game. I initially thought it was Morse code, but it's not. Sam's mom is calling him. He lies to her and tells her that he's at work and having a busy day while he's just outside watching his neighbor. Sam's mom is excited to watch the Janet Gaynor film Seventh Heaven later on. My interpretation of the Janet Gaynor Seventh Heaven mentions is that it's just here to show us that artists' work will live on long after they're gone. Later on, there's a lot of talk about how things will float away like tissue paper, but that's not true considering we're listening to Sam's mom still excited about this film from 1927, starring actors who are long gone. There will be a few reoccurring references throughout the film to Seventh Heaven and Janet Gaynor to kind of drive the fact that she is not forgotten. Also, in a movie that kind of revolves around the elites taking advantage of women, it's nice that they reference the woman who won the first Best Actress award at the Oscars. She also won for 3 films, which is the first and only time a woman has won for multiple roles. This 3-to-1 ratio is something that will be referenced many, many times throughout the film as well, so maybe she was just chosen because she won 1 Oscar for 3 films. I'll explain more on Janet Gaynor later on. Sam sees Sarah, played by Riley Keough, who is actually the oldest grandchild of Elvis Presley. I used to think she was picked on purpose due to her and this movie's connection to Hollywood, but she was actually the second option. Dakota Johnson was originally cast in the role of Sarah but dropped out, so I think the Elvis connection is just a coincidence, but it's still worth pointing out. Sam's attention is drawn to her and her dog Coca-Cola. When we take Sam and Sarah, we get the word samsara, which means wandering through or a cycle of reincarnation. We could connect this to Sam in particular, who is seemingly wandering through life, kinda on the outskirts, not really making anything of himself. Sarah is listening to the song Turning Teeth by Jesus and the Brides of Dracula, and I'll probably just dedicate a whole section to this song later on, so we'll come back to it. Sarah's bathing suit, hat, dog, and even her radio are all white. Spoiler alert, Sam's venture through this movie is to follow Sarah and figure out what happened to her, so I believe her in white is a reference to following the White Rabbit. Sam's voyeuristic tendencies are exposed when Sarah spots him. He sneaks away and it's revealed that he has a girlfriend. She's never named, she's just credited as actress. And she's an actress who just auditioned for a role. This is probably another very intentional choice, because there are a ton of no-named striving actors and actresses in Hollywood just trying to find their way. This could also just be how Sam sees her, a nobody, just someone to sleep with. Also in old Hollywood films, a lot of roles were just named like what their jobs were, so like actor, actress, plumber, things like that. Sam also has a movie nerd's dream on his living room walls. Posters of Abbott and Costello meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, posters of The Wolfman, Psycho, Rear Window. 3 of these movies could be referring to things like Sam being an unreliable narrator, or having like these 2 different personalities. Rear Window is the outcast, and is referring to him just kind of spying on his neighbor. Rear Window is also director David Robert Mitchell's favorite film of all time. This interaction kicks off a lot of things that we will talk about going forward. The mistreatment of women, the possibility of dogs representing women, Sam's fascination with codes, and the mention of Sam having a bad smell attached to him that he blames on skunks. So Sam and his nameless girlfriend have some of the most unsexy sex I've ever seen put to film. It's also doggy style while they both look and talk about Sam's Kurt Cobain poster that was autographed by his daughter. While this is going on, a news report comes on the TV talking about a billionaire, Jefferson Sevens, who has gone missing after a fishing trip off the coast of Catalina Island. I believe his name is very intentional. Sevens, sounding like sevens, like the number 777, which is linked to self-discovery and growth. Sam also finishes as the family is talking about giving a $2 million reward for information on his disappearance. It could be a coincidence, but I'm just analyzing this movie as if there are no coincidences, especially because Sam is very interested in discovery and mysteries. The neighbor's parrot is also an ongoing thing in this movie, as it keeps saying something that no one can really decipher. The screenplay has it saying this, whatever's on the screen. I've spent way too much time analyzing what this stupid bird is saying. I've seen people saying that if you play it backwards, it's just a bird squawking and it has no meaning. I've seen people saying that the bird is saying Hollywood. The movie and the script tell us that it could be saying not a friend. I personally came to 2 different conclusions that it could be, one being more likely than the other. The less likely one is that it's literally not saying anything, and it's just a distraction to get us to not pay attention to the actual problem at hand. I only think that this is possible because Sam is literally off doing stuff that doesn't matter instead of like paying his rent or getting income. The more likely option is that it's saying always up. Once I heard it say always up, I can't picture it saying anything different. At the end of the film, Sam finally watches the Janet Gaynor movie Seventh Heaven, and the text on the screen says, "Never look down, always look up," right before we hear the bird for the final time. So I think that's our confirmation. This could have also been a warning to Sam because he heard his bird as he was looking down at Sarah, like the bird was warning him to look up and don't look down at this thing that's going to ruin your life. I don't know how I totally missed this in my first analysis, but I did, and that's why I'm here redoing it and giving the movie the maximum attention. Going back to Sam and his unnamed lady friend, we see the kind of relationship he has with her as he talks about his Playboy issue that he still has, that he used when he was a kid, and he found it in his dad's drawer. It's from July 1970, featuring Janet Wolfe on the cover. She's posed upside down in a pool, covering her breasts. We also have a very similar photo on the poster for this film, and this pose will also come back much later on. Clearly this is important to Sam, but we're learning that he's only letting his girlfriend into the sexual side of his life. She finds some of his codes, and Sam immediately gets insecure and tries to hide them. So she's only seeing like this surface level part of him, and not the real him that's into like mysteries and decoding things. He looks out of his window through the blinds, and I've always loved this shot of him looking down at Sarah, like he's in Rear Window or Body Double. He sees Sarah, and we hear the bird once again yelling, "Always up," as he's looking down at her. So Sam drives down Sunset Boulevard, past Sunset Junction, and goes to a comic book store. He finds a comic book titled Under the Silver Lake, which I touched upon earlier. He flips through it to find a page that says "Beware the Dog Killer." So we'll come to find out things in this comic either have happened, are happening, or will happen. Only I know the secrets of Silver Lake. If we are taking this movie from the unreliable narrator aspect, we can consider the fact that Sam is just stepping into the world of this comic book that he thinks is interesting. Probably not the case, but worth noting nonetheless. The clerk says that he actually knows the writer, and he's strange but nice. There's also a comic for The Amazing Spider-Man here too, a nod to Andrew Garfield's portrayal of that character. Sam convinces the clerk to give his number to the writer of Under the Silver Lake. Earlier, Sam's girlfriend pointed out that his apartment smells bad, which he blamed on skunks. You could assume that he's blaming skunks, when in reality it's just the smell of weed. But on his way to his apartment, he actually does see a skunk, so he actually might be telling the truth. There will also be a lot of evidence suggesting that Sam is the dog killer. Here he runs into Sarah's dog Coca-Cola, and he conveniently has a dog treat in his back pocket. Kinda weird for someone without a dog to have, and he confirms that his dog died recently. Sarah walks out of her apartment, and I notice that she walks in like this weird, unnatural way, as if Sam is seeing this dreamy figure. I'm not really sure how to describe it other than showing it, but it's like this larger-than-life reveal. I also think him mentioning that his dog died could be just referring to his ex-girlfriend breaking up with him. Sarah confronts Sam about watching her earlier, and he kind of plays it off as just watching after initially denying it. For some reason, she's cool with it and asks him for a smoke. They watch the 1953 movie How to Marry a Millionaire. This movie is either, one, a kind of hidden message for what happens in Hollywood where a millionaire takes 3 women, this will make sense later, or it gives Sam this weird impression of Hollywood where 3 women would want to marry a millionaire. Like I said, this will make sense later. Essentially, How to Marry a Millionaire is about 3 girls wanting to find eligible millionaires, which is shocking, I know. As they're watching it, we see that Sarah has dolls of the actresses Marilyn Monroe, Lauren Bacall, and Betty Gable. There are codes underneath each doll. Long story short, they translate to tombstone, sheriff, entries. I kind of debated with how I want to discuss the 3 words because it's kind of a big mystery surrounding the film. There are also debates on what the words actually are. Like, there's another shot in the movie where the dolls are in a different order. So is it tombstone, sheriff, entries, or is it sheriff, tombstone, entries? I don't know. There is a sheriff in the film, and her name tag reads Barnes, so is that the word we should be replacing sheriff with? There are tombstones in the movie for Wells and Alfred Hitchcock. Should we remember their last names and replace tombstone with their names? Well, to make this long journey less long, later on there's a reference to copial graffiti. The graffiti translates to coffee menu. The coffee menu at the beginning of the movie tells us what 3 words. I'll point out the places where these are found later on in the movie, but I decided to just get it out of the way now. WhatThreeWords is an app or website that lets you find a geographical location based on 3 words. Every 3 meters is a new square and a new set of 3 words. So when we search Tombstone Sheriff entries, we are brought to a place in California, which is why I think the 3 words we're supposed to use are just the literal words and not Wells or Barnes or whatever. Keep in mind the computer game I mentioned earlier, where there are clues and whatnot, but they don't necessarily mean anything. The location is also near Mitchell's Peak, which I think is a clever hint by director David Robert Mitchell. It's also within Kings Canyon, and later on, there will be multiple references to Kings, so I think all of this confirms that this is the location that David Robert Mitchell was telling us about. Now, as far as what the location holds, I have absolutely no idea. 6 years ago, a Redditor planned to go to this location, but there was no follow-up. His account is still active, but he never followed up on his trip or never even let us know if he actually went there. I've also seen other people say that this location is unreachable. I honestly can't confirm or deny. I've heard people say it's like a day's journey to even walk there. I honestly have no idea. Another group of 3 words could be Wells, Barnes, Tombs, after Owen Wells, Sheriff Barnes, and the Tombs being the entry point later on that Sam goes through. One thing I gotta question is, even if this is a location to go to, how and why would David Robert Mitchell place something here for anyone to find? I honestly don't know. If I lived in California, I'd be down to try to go, but I'm in Ohio, so it's a bit of a distance. This is kind of where the journey through WhatThreeWords ends. There isn't really an explanation, and I think it's probably intentional. Once again, think about the intention of some things in this movie. They're here for us to find, but they don't all mean something. And I'd hate to go to California from Ohio and find absolutely nothing. Okay, so let's get out of the California trails and back into the film. Everybody good? Good. As they watch the movie How to Marry a Millionaire, Sarah shows Sam her bracelet from an old boyfriend, and her temporary tattoo of a zebra riding a surfboard from the Fruit Stripes gum. He says thank God for temporary, referencing both the tattoo and the fact that Sarah had a boyfriend but currently doesn't. The characters in the movie How to Marry a Millionaire are talking about how the guy is the end of the line, but I believe the movie pays attention to this because it seems like they're talking about Sam, like they're talking through the TV at him. Sarah also shares her favorite combination of snacks, saltine crackers and orange juice, and claims it's one of those unknown combinations. The movie obviously is about hidden symbols and codes, so I think this is just a weird kind of nod to that. Sarah's roommates arrive home. She coincidentally has 2 roommates, so there's a set of 3 girls here, kind of mirroring the movie How to Marry a Millionaire. They're with a pirate whose identity goes unexplained. He's just here, and we just kind of have to accept it. I don't have a lot of evidence to go off of, but I think he's just like a connection for the rich people in Hollywood to get these sets of 3 women. As I kind of said before, there are rich men who take sets of 3 women to underground bunkers to ascend to a place greater than heaven. Well, 3 women are here. We'll come to find out that this set of women are the ones that are chosen. Sarah kicks Sam out, and then we see that fireworks are shot off. Sarah seems alarmed by the fireworks, and Sam says it's too late in the summer for fireworks, so obviously we have to take a closer look at this. You could just assume that this is just a signal for Sarah and her friends to join their man in their bunker, but if we put the sound of the fireworks into Morse code, it's saying ascend now. It's very fascinating how this movie just has signals at like a surface level, but if you dig deeper, it's actually spelling something too. I also don't know how realistic it is to shoot off fireworks in Morse code. Like, I don't know if they're that controllable, but nonetheless, it's here. I went as far as to analyze the pegboard in Sarah's apartment, as well as the clothes her friends are wearing and have been gifted by the pirate, but I don't think there's any importance to them as far as I could tell. Sam leaves, and when he gets to his car, he finds that someone has put gum on the door handle of his car and carved a penis on the hood. A couple things here. I think the gum is supposed to resemble a spider web on Sam's hand, and then he gets into a superhero pose, so I think this is a nod to Andrew Garfield's time as Spider-Man. Sam sees a few kids egging and peeing on cars, so you would assume they would be responsible for the gum, so Sam shoves an egg into one of the kids' mouths. However, Sarah had a tattoo from the pack of gum, so I think she might have been responsible for the gum. Whether she did it because Sam was watching her earlier, or maybe the kids found her pack of gum, is undetermined, but I think it was from her pack of gum since the movie drew attention to her tattoo. Sam beating up these kids is also a quick and easy way of showing us that Sam really isn't a good guy and a character we shouldn't be rooting for. These kids are idiots, but on the other hand, Sam is just straight up wailing on kids half his size. I mentioned the copial graffiti in the 3 words segment earlier. Well, in the next scene, there is a news report about Jefferson 7's disappearance. On the ticker at the bottom, it mentions that copial graffiti was spotted in downtown Los Angeles. No other reports about it, just that it was found, so this is the viewer's cue to be on the lookout for copial graffiti. Like I said, I'll point out the 3 words and clues as we go on. We learn more about this book, Under the Silver Lake, where a resident found a film canister in his basement. On the film, a man holds a gun to his head and a sign that reads, "No one will ever be happy here until all the dogs are dead." The man saw himself as the next Douglas Fairbanks, but his lack of success drove him to offing himself. People think that the death of this young aspiring actor led to the modern-day dog killer. Personally, I'm under the belief that Sam is the dog killer, and instead of killing dogs, he's killing women. I think the character in the book is kind of like a mirror of Sam. Similar ideas and ideologies, except one wants dogs dead and one wants women dead. Later on, Sam hears barking coming from a woman. Makes me think he sees them as lesser than men, more of a companion than equal. It's probably the most common conclusion out of the dog killer theories, and I can't really see the movie any other way than him being the dog killer. The 3 times we see the graffiti, "Beware the dog killer," it's either looming over Sam or Sam is looming over it. There are definitely a few other suspects, like the guy suspiciously wearing the coated shirt earlier on, even Sarah, or just no one involved in the movie, it's just a guy out there killing dogs. But I think there's just too much evidence to not think that it's Sam. And the more you look into things to try to disprove that it's Sam, I don't think you'll find much evidence that kind of supports that. I think it's just as simple as the movie being told through the eyes of this weird, unreliable person, hence why the women are referred to as dogs. After Sam reads the book, he walks the trail from where he saw the squirrel earlier. He sees dog treats on the ground and follows the trail. It's revealed that this is a dream, so just as we get suspicions that Sam might not be the dog killer, and we think that whoever this guy is the dog killer, it's a dream. As he follows the treats, he finds a dead dog, and then he sees what looks like Sarah eating a man. But she turns around and it's revealed to be a man who is eating Jefferson 7's, the missing billionaire. A couple things to unpack with this scene. It's a weird twisted reality of things kind of just blending together, like the dog killer, Sarah, and Jefferson 7's. It almost reminded me of when you fall asleep with the TV on and your brain kind of creates dreams based on what you're hearing. Or maybe that's just something I've experienced, I don't know. But Sam is also watching a movie where they're talking about gassing dogs, so it could very well be a situation like that. I personally couldn't tell for sure if it was Jefferson 7's because I don't recognize him, but the script says that it's him. Speaking of the script, it has these random pages of images, like the cover of the Playboy issue and a page of just a dog treat. Apparently Andrew Garfield was immediately sold on this script by looking at how weird it was. So Jefferson 7's body is severed, get it, into 2 pieces, and they're pulled to the side. And that's the dream. It's very out of place for this type of reality that's been established. Like, why is this barking man dressed as Sarah? Because it's just a stupid dream, that's why. Sam wakes up and he hasn't got his hands on Sticky from the gum because he gets an Amazing Spider-Man comic stuck to his hand. Wherever Andrew Garfield goes, he'll always be connected to his role of Spider-Man. Which, fun fact, Spider-Man stuff was actually in the script before Andrew Garfield even was cast, so according to David Robert Mitchell, this is just a weird coincidence that Spider-Man stuff is even in the movie. But honestly, whether it's intentional or not, the comic book getting stuck to his hand is such a cool Easter egg and one of my favorite shots from the film. He even has this annoyed look on his face when he gets the comic off his hand. Like, get this thing away from me. Keep in mind, this was a time where Andrew Garfield was kind of sour on playing Spider-Man because he got kind of screwed after The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So Sam goes to Sarah's apartment to discover that it's empty and they moved out. This is one of our first signals that Sam looks for deeper meanings into things because he goes to the manager of the apartment complex for answers, and he's simply just told that they moved out. What's so weird about that? And despite them moving in the middle of the night, which is weird, they did forfeit the deposit and paid the lease, so they did everything normally. Sam is also reminded that he needs to pay back his rent in 4 days or he'll be kicked out. So once again, he's worrying about the wrong things. He could also have this mindset of finding meaning in what makes him happy despite the consequences. He's not worried about any consequences, he'll just keep doing him. Sam meets up at the bar with his buddy Topher Grace, who is just called Bar Buddy in the casting list, so we'll call him Topher Grace. Topher Grace asks Sam if he's heard about these dog killers, and Sam questions if there's more than one, something a dog killer would ask. There really is nothing important to this scene, it's just them kind of sitting at the bar and Sam rips a napkin. For some reason I think it's funny. Sam resorts to breaking into Sarah's apartment to investigate, and he finds a box of some of her belongings that she left behind. The box includes a toy, her doll, a photo of her, CDs, what looks like Fruit Stripes gum, and this trophy. Sam has walked into a scene that he's supposed to have no part in because this box was meant for someone else. This girl named Troy has come to gather Sarah's belongings, scaring Sam out the window. If you listen closely to the score in this movie, there's like this whistling sound that is at the end of the song Hills of Gold from the score. It might be a cue that what we're seeing isn't actually playing out as we see it, and is from Sam's unreliable perspective. Or it could be telling us to look deeper into what we're seeing. I'm not sure what it was, but it also happened during the squirrel's death earlier, and it happens here where we see a symbol on the wall. But the symbol we see on the wall is a code in a system for homeless people. And this one means keep quiet, which I'm assuming is just them telling Troy to keep quiet. Sam puts on his shades to remain unsuspicious and follows this woman. He passes by some signs of missing dogs, as well as some copial graffiti on the wall. This copial graffiti is one of 2 times we'll see it spell out coffee menu. As Sam follows her, she jumps in a car with 2 girls. This car is a 1987 Volkswagen Rabbit Wolfsburg. Sam is literally following the White Rabbit. Sam follows them to Mike Haynes Stadium at John Marshall High School. I'm reaching here, but if you want to think about the tortured women in Hollywood, or just weird ongoings in Los Angeles, this is very close to the La Bianca house where the Manson murders took place. Sam draws the keep quiet code on the back of a check, further showing his mindset of not worrying about paying his rent or anything, and just doing meaningless nonsense like this. The girls wait in view of the scoreboard of the stadium, and the numbers 751 pop up. They were waiting for an address because they go to 751 Echo Park Avenue, which is where these paddle boats are. I just want to point out how wild it is to see all these missing dog flyers everywhere. It's crazy. Sam does the greatest run in the history of cinema as he's trying to remain unsuspicious. The girls hop on a paddle boat, Sam hides, then gets a boat of his own. The pirate is here, and this confirms that he's involved in Sarah's disappearance, because they hand him Sarah's belongings that she left in her apartment. I also love this heightened musical score here when he runs out and runs away. It does a great job at highlighting how uncanny and out of place this guy is. Sam continues to follow the girls and the White Rabbit to a party. There's another neat little thing here where Sam parks in a handicap spot and puts a handicap tag on his mirror, once again as a way to show us that he isn't really a likable guy. He's kind of an asshole. The movie definitely opens up here as Sam arrives at this party, where he's greeted by a woman telling him welcome to purgatory. He replies, "Good to be here. I just needed some time to think about things." Which I think he's just making a joke about how souls spend a lot of time in purgatory when they die. I've referenced it a lot already, but this is where the commentary on women really amps up. Sam is given a pin out of a cherry. The cherry reference speaks for itself, in that popping a cherry is a term used for breaking the hymen of a woman or losing their virginity. This will also come back in a few minutes. A woman is reading poetry that says, "All these holy trinities of women, thriving like plants under the heat of the city's male gaze. 33333. The trinity of women and the repetition of 3 are referencing Sarah and her 2 friends and a hint that there are more trinities of women out there. The movie How to Marry a Millionaire, like I said earlier, also has 3 women seeking a man. The band playing at this party is Jesus and the Brides of Dracula. There's 1 male singer and 3 female singers in the band, Jesus being the man obviously, and there's a sign behind him saying, "Jesus saves." So these 3 women are apparently being saved by this 1 man. The Cleveland fan in me is both amused and triggered by the repetition of 3-1, if you know, you know. And looking at this through the eyes of the code-hunting conspiracy Sam, the story of Dracula has always consisted of him having 3 wives. So, like the movie How to Marry a Millionaire, perhaps the higher-ups in this industry are hiding their agenda right in front of our eyes, but only for them to understand. Next we meet Balloon Girl, played by Grace Van Patten. Yet again, another character without a name. She's literally a girl who's wearing balloons and dancing for everyone. There are a couple guys in the group who are wearing Beware the Dog Killer shirts, which I love the idea of this just being a shirt that people are wearing to bring awareness to the dog killings. When the song ends, everybody pops their balloons with the pins they've been given. This could be a reference to popping the cherry. I think there's a bit more to it, and it's referencing how women, or entertainers in general, are kind of used up and forgotten about. Because once the balloons pop and the dancing stops, the crowd moves on. Movies like Sunset Boulevard and Maps to the Stars also touched upon this as well. Speaking of, Maps to the Stars is probably a video coming very, very soon, by the way. Sam hides behind a beach ball in a pool and overhears the girls talking about Jesus sneaking away with one of the brides. They claim you don't become a bride without fucking Jesus, and that he wouldn't get away with it if he wasn't so handsome. I don't really think that's true, but I think it's just suggesting that a place of power allows men to get away with things like this. Sam also follows Troy to the bathroom and questions her about Sarah. Sam also tries to overstep his boundaries by stepping into the girl's bathroom without thinking he would suffer consequences. He's kneed in the nuts and falls to the ground. The red tile bathroom, aside from being very beautiful to look at, I believe is a reference to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, which also has a very red bathroom. I wouldn't necessarily be on board with this being a reference if there wasn't another bathroom scene later on that is a clearer reference to The Shining. I don't think this movie has any deep connection to The Shining other than David Robert Mitchell just being a fan, and that's also a movie that people have dissected to death to the point where they've gone too far, which I believe Mitchell wants people to do with Under the Silver Lake. I've even seen some people breaking down Sam's apartment and how the dimensions don't make sense, which people have done with the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. I don't think it's intentional. It happens in more movies than you would think. Like, a lot of interior shooting doesn't take place in the same place as the exterior shots. It's just how movies work. So while Sam is on the ground, 5 more women enter the bathroom and yell at him for being a man in the woman's bathroom, and he sees their yelling turn into barking. This gives us a glimpse into his mind once again where he sees women like dogs. Their screaming and yelling is nothing more to him than barking. Once again, all signs are pointing to him being the dog killer. When Sam leaves the bathroom, he overhears one of the brides saying that they were thinking about using the name Jesus and the Brides of Frankenstein because vampires are oversaturated in pop culture. Which wouldn't make sense because Dracula had 3 brides and Frankenstein had 1. I love how the background conversations are brought to the forefront, even though not all of them are important. It really reminds me of games like Life is Strange for some reason. That kind of happens when you're walking around some parts of the game. Sam runs into his friend Alan at this party, who is wearing a woman's blouse. It's almost like Alan is poking fun at Sam and the audience for trying to find a deeper meaning in things, or perhaps even nudging them to look deeper. You could look at it either way. He shrugs off Sam's question about wearing a blouse and says, "I guess." But then he admits to questioning things like why we're swimming on rooftops when the ocean is right there. Sam says he doesn't have answers, and Alan confirms that nobody does. But it's like Alan, or David Robert Mitchell, are telling us to keep asking questions despite no one having an answer. Or maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't know. A woman in an emerald dress, titled Emerald Beauty, comes into the scene and points out Millicent Sevens, the daughter of missing billionaire Jefferson Sevens, is at the party. Alan and the Emerald Beauty judge her for being here, but Sam says it's hard to know what a person would do when they're in pain. I think he can relate to this because he's about to be evicted from his apartment, has no job, but is still dealing with the issues with women, and he's on the hunt for Sarah. One of the brides of Dracula says that she's having a secret solo show at Hollywood Forever and is giving out tickets in the form of cookies with 76 on them. I really can't find any significance to the number 76, or the cookie being the ticket, but in our 3-word code earlier, possibly cookie could be the word we're supposed to use for entries. One thing I could get out of 76 is that the script mentions Sam being at 76 gas station at the very end of the journey. How the 751 is on the scoreboard told the girls of the address of where to meet the pirate. Maybe 76 is telling people who would catch the reference that the exit for these underground bunkers is by the 76 gas station. It'll make sense later, don't worry. I can't even really tell if I'm reaching anymore, but I think it's weird for a writer to specify this particular gas station in the script if they didn't mean for it to be intentional. Also, it's not identical, but it's a very similar logo to the 76 logo, with the 76 in a circle. The only other connection would be that the Illuminati was founded in 1776, but once again, I don't even know if I'm reaching anymore. Breaking news hits the party when people see on Twitter that Jefferson Sevens has died in a fiery car accident. This movie takes place in 2011, actually, and the way Twitter looks through this iPhone 4S just gives me so much nostalgia. Although technically it's summer 2011 and the iPhone 4 didn't come out until October, we'll let it slide. Someone breaks the news to Millicent that her father died, and she leaves the party. Sam is walking the trails back to his apartment and gets a call from the writer of Under the Silver Lake. The guy at the comic book store gave him Sam's number, and he wants to meet with him tomorrow. Sam encounters a shadowy figure that is watching him. And man, David Robert Mitchell really knows how to create a creepy vibe. It Follows has one of my favorite jump scares of all time, and even in this film, when he makes something scary, he really makes it scary. Sam runs away and then encounters another one, or maybe the same one but it moved. He hides and the threat never fully reveals itself. Instead of being attacked by these shadowy figures, he's sprayed by a skunk. I think this is just a look into Sam's paranoia, especially after following Troy and her friends all day and going to this weird Hollywood party. Now he might have a sense that he's being followed, but he's always too focused on things that don't matter, and he misses things right in front of him, like this skunk that sprays him. Back at Sam's apartment, we get a shot of the clues that Sam has so far, and we hear of the news report of Jefferson Sevens' death. It's also reported that the remains of 3 women and a dog were discovered, and they show a hat on the news that one of the girls was wearing, and it's actually the hat that Sarah has on in the photo. Rest in peace, Sarah. For now. So Sam bathes in tomato juice just to get the smell of skunk off of him. This is that green bathroom that I referenced earlier, that I think is a reference to The Shining. His actress girlfriend is back and reads another book from the author of Under the Silver Lake, titled The Owl's Kiss. A lost legend of folklore, who arrives in the night and seduces men and women, killing them in their sleep. She hasn't been referenced by the mainstream media and is rumored to be involved in a long-standing American cult with origins in trade and finance. And we see that crazy good artwork from the Under the Silver Lake book. Great stuff. The Owl's Kiss will come back later, so I'll have a whole section about her and theories about who she could be later on. Sam's girlfriend finally confronts him about the weird pages on his nightstand earlier, and finally gets him to fess up. He mentions how old records had satanic messages in them if you played them backwards. Sam noticed that Vanna White on Wheel of Fortune did this series of weird glances every so often. For the past 7 months, he's kept record of every time it happens. While this is probably something that means nothing, like maybe she's just looking at people behind the scenes, it's definitely an interesting theory. Like, how could we possibly know that all the things in media we consume is exactly what we're told it is? Things like 9/11 being hinted at in things prior to 9/11, The Simpsons predicting the future, Pizzagate, things like that, have really brought this kind of thought to the forefront, and more people are starting to think this way. That's not to say it hasn't always been this way. Like, it seems like every older generation thinks that the younger generation of musicians are satanic. Sam thinks it's crazy to assume that wealthy people wouldn't hide things for each other in the things that we consume.
For us, I think it's fucking ridiculous to assume that media has just one purpose, right?
Which you could even take as a comment about Under the Silver Lake, and the multiple ways that people are choosing to interpret the film. This causes Sam's girlfriend to leave and blames the smell. Sam's smell has been mentioned a few times already. I think we can assume that he actually does smell since he was sprayed by a skunk, but also his conspiracy theories kind of drive people away, like the crazy uncle that you see at Thanksgiving dinner. Essentially, this smell will be pointed out a few more times. It's just the bad vibes and bad aura that Sam gives off, as well as the skunk. Keep in mind, it's crazy to assume that there is one meaning. If you need a visual interpretation on how I look when I'm writing videos or taking notes for a podcast, it's how Sam looks when he's logging when Vanna White does these weird gestures. It's insane. Sam has this weird dream of Sarah in the swimming pool at his apartment. Thinking about his fascination with the Playboy issue, now seeing Sarah in the pool, later on he skinny dips with Millicent Sevens, we can assume that Sam associates water with sex, which probably stems from the Playboy issue that he found when he was a kid. To Sam, Sarah was his dream girl, his Marilyn Monroe. And this scene here is actually replicating a scene from Marilyn Monroe's unfinished and final film, Something's Got to Give. Later on, Sam is even holding Sarah's picture on the fridge with magnets of photos from this particular scene from the movie. There's also a lot to be said about the treatment of Marilyn Monroe during the making of this film. She was sick for a lot of the film, which caused a lot of chaos on the set. It seemed like just a bad situation for everyone involved because production would get pushed back. She was fired on June 1st and then passed away 2 months later. Marilyn Monroe is like the poster child of mistreated women in Hollywood, so we can gather that this is like a symbol for the mistreatment of women. It's such a beautifully done scene, and it really captures the original scene perfectly. At the end of this scene, Sarah starts barking at Sam, revealing that this is a dream and not reality, once again referring back to Sam's weird perception of women and how they're like companions and pets. And the fact that this scene is a recreation of another famous scene, we can assume that the Hollywood industry sees these women as pets as well, and thinks that the actors and actresses are easily replaceable. Sam wakes up and the movie recreates that blind scene from earlier, where he's watching Sarah, except this time he seems more defeated, and instead of seeing Sarah, he sees police and caution tape on her door, since she's presumed to be dead. The next morning, Sam is walking the streets. He's wearing a wood badge staff shirt. It's never implied how exactly Sam paid for his rent prior to the film, but this would imply that he at least had employment at a camp or a scout program. David Robert Mitchell has said he won't say where Sam worked prior to the movie, but there are clues that help us figure this out, and I think this is just one of them. Sam is watching a load of women walk to an audition in some man's garage. Very weird, very creepy, and Sam is obviously checking them out and objectifying them. This audition doesn't even seem like a legitimate audition because it's just some guy who wrote movie auditions on a piece of cardboard. And the amount of women dressed very similar going to this audition just shows you the amount of women that are trying to accomplish the same goal. Like I said earlier, actors and actresses are a dime a dozen. In a blink and you miss it shot, there's a magnet on the blue van that says, "Dogs deserve better." The fact that this is placed during this scene in particular, it's becoming more and more clear that dogs are representing women in this film. Sam and three girls, again we have the 3-to-1 ratio, approach more graffiti that says "Beware the dog killer." Sam is the only one standing in the position where his shadow would loom over it. Like how the graffiti was looming over him at the beginning of the film, now he's looming over it. Once again, it's becoming more and more clear that he is the dog killer. The girls point out this smell coming from Sam, and he sees that his car is being repoed. Maybe Sam should have been working instead of trying to solve this mystery. I don't know. So Sam's walking, he comes across a billboard for contact lenses that says, "I can see clearly now." At the bottom, we see that 1E equals 2 E's. If we go back to WhatThreeWords, we can add 2 E's where there is now 1, which now properly spells the word 3. In the credits of this film, it refers to this actress as X/Billboard Girl, so we can assume that this is Sam's ex-girlfriend, which is why he looks so distressed when he sees her. And if we take the dog killer into account, him knowing a woman who became successful after him is probably driving him to hate women even more. Sam goes to the home of the comic book writer. His address is 1492, the year that America was discovered, linking this to the theme of discovery and uncovering things in this film. His home also has bars over the windows and on his porch, so he's definitely this weird, paranoid conspiracy theorist, possibly mirroring the path that Sam is on. His house is also a gold mine in and of itself. There are owls everywhere, peeps in a fish tank that he labeled Peep Show, there's money in boxes, resin castings of famous people's faces all over the walls. It's nuts. Behind the writer, there is a book that has 97 to 03X written on it. It could possibly just be a book covering things in between 1991 and 2003, kind of like Sam has his Wheel of Fortune note. I looked up page 91 of the script just in case, and it tells us it's 3 a.m. when the owl's kiss comes back later in the movie, so maybe that's what 9103 is referring to. This movie goes out of its way to show us that Johnny Depp's face is right next to Grace Kelly's, despite them having absolutely no connection, and Grace Kelly having died in 1982. I think this is just to show us that everyone's fate is ultimately the same. We all end up in the same place when we die. The comic book writer's ultimate plan is to save these and pass them down so that these people will be remembered. I'm sure some girl is just dying to marry and reproduce with such a man. The comic book writer also confirms the hobo code that Sam found means stay quiet, and he gives him a book of other hobo codes. The idea of hobos using codes to communicate makes the possibility of people in Hollywood using these codes all the more possible, like a group of people using codes that other people don't understand to communicate. The writer points out the amount of missing dogs, people, and belongings in Hollywood, and that something big is coming. He says it could be the cult of the whale, which is something that he wrote about. The cult of the whale is a cult that worships a whale. Simple enough. Whale vocalizations apparently cure arthritis and ease depression. In Scientology, large financial backers of the church are referred to as whales. Do with that information what you will. However, he really thinks that the owl's kiss is the one responsible for all disappearances. He asks Sam if he has $1 to show him what he's talking about, and to everyone's surprise, Sam actually does have $1. On the corner of every $1 bill there is a hidden owl, which the writer claims is the sign of the owl's kiss. There's actually no official confirmation that it is an owl, but conspiracy theorists seem to have agreed that it's either an owl or a spider. But the writer thinks that every home that uses money is under its jurisdiction. Bohemian Grove is like the poster child of this conspiracy theory. It's a real private gathering of powerful people, and they have a 40-foot owl. No one really knows what goes on, so it's like a goldmine for conspiracy theories. The comic book writer gives us a montage of hidden sexual innuendos in advertisements over the years. Mentions of blowing in a woman's face, burgers looking like breasts, men flaunting their genitalia, things like that. There's even a comic where Superman is talking about having to fight a secret society. There's another comic that the writer made about trafficking. He claims that we think we got these ideas from free will, but they've actually been programmed into us. He says that it's very common for the higher-ups to try to communicate through hidden messages like Sam previously thought. It's as common as tits and hamburgers. He shows Sam his hidden room. He has his house wired so that no one could get in and out without him knowing, because a ton of people have died by the owl's kiss. Remember this for later. Newspaper clippings of Roosevelt's death, Marilyn Monroe's death, a headless body being found, a row of women with a few crossed out. We can assume that he thinks these people have all been killed by the owl's kiss. There's also a newspaper clipping that says cows lose their jobs as milk prices drop. This movie's tendency to refer to people as animals continues. We also finally see the code that will help us translate what the Morse code on the coffee menu means. Originally it was Morse code that gave us a bunch of gibberish, but this code that the comic book writer has leads us to translate the gibberish into WhatThreeWords. Essentially, the letters mean a different letter, if that makes sense. The writer shows Sam a box of Space Stone cereal, and we just need to take a second to acknowledge how accurately this box is based off of the real-life cereal Moonstones. In Space Stone cereal, there was a secret map hidden in every box that is geographically to scale from Silver Lake to the Hollywood Hills, and it's apparently the writer's life mission to crack the code and figure out what this map leads to. I love how Sam is judging him even though he's on this path too. So Sam is back walking the streets and meets back up with Topher Grace. They use a drone to watch Silver Lake from above. Topher Grace says that he's been doing this and is even familiar with this one girl that he's watching. I think this is just symbolizing all the troubled people in LA, kind of getting turned down for roles and whatnot. Sam goes on a monologue about how he fucked up a long time ago and he's living the wrong life. He used to think that he would be somebody, but now he's just this drifter, which is a very common mindset among people, and Topher Grace even points that out. It's narcissism and entitlement 101. But I love how despite it being such a common mindset, it still hits home with a lot of people. I occasionally see people posting this on TikTok or Instagram Reels, and it gets a ton of engagement. No matter where you are in your life, it always seems like most people feel like they would be and should be somewhere different. When Sam admits that he thinks he's being followed, once again Topher Grace shuts him down and reminds him that it's not really a special feeling that he has. He wants to feel special, but he's not. Nowadays, people don't need werewolves to be afraid because we have computers that track our every movement. So even if he is being watched, he's not the only one. Also, right after Sam mentions that he's being watched, we hear an owl hooing, referencing the owl's kiss that it is actually watching him. Back to the drone, the girl finally comes into frame and she seems extremely upset about something as she's undressing. We could look at this as perhaps she took a role that goes against her morals, since she's literally undressing on camera, or the way that her eyes are pointing up like one of the sexual innuendo ads that we saw a few minutes ago. Perhaps she even did something for a role that she's not proud of. Regardless, it is this long drawn-out scene of this woman just crying, so it's meant for us to take something like this from it. Sam leaves, so maybe he is actually kind of normal and doesn't like to sit and watch someone cry. There was a reference of people living on long after they're dead that's brought back here as Sam cuts through the cemetery and there's a shot of Alfred Hitchcock's tombstone that these three people are just hanging out at. There's actually a screening of David Robert Mitchell's first film, The Myth of the American Sleepover, at this cemetery. I'm not sure if it was a copyright issue or if it's just another case of actors and actresses being a dime a dozen, but it's actually recreated with new actresses. Cindy Sweeney and Bobby Menuez step into these roles. They're also here watching the movie with a man in a Native American costume. They don't have names, they're just titled Shooting Star 1 and Shooting Star 2. They leave and they get into a limo with the pirates, so it seems like a very active and ongoing operation of these women being brought to these millionaires by the pirate, and I'm assuming others, like this Native American. So Sam goes to the Summertime Secret Show where one of the brides of Dracula are performing. He's now wearing this flannel when everyone is dressed nicely. He He presents the 76 cookie and is asked to take a bite out of it, but he just eats the whole thing. Very bizarre. When he walks in, there's a phone number on the wall. I actually tried calling it, but it just went straight to voicemail, and I left a voicemail, and they never called back, so I don't know what this number is. It either doesn't mean anything, or the movie is just too old for it to matter. The bride sings a song called To Sir with Love that she dedicates to Jesus. I won't get into every lyric, but this song is about how she feels indebted to a man, and she will do anything now to please him. Some lady here is passing out records for Jesus and the Brides of Dracula's album. And our favorite character, Alan, is here, who still claims that he's just working and floating along. The more men we meet in this movie, the more I start to think that they could be very different paths that Sam is on. I don't think they're actually different versions of Sam, like some have theorized. I think that gets kind of too supernatural. But I think they're examples of like how you kind of become who you hang around. In some weird way, Alan really feels like a guy that I would just like to have a beer with. I don't really know why, he just seems like a fun guy. But he explains how he hooked up with a girl last week who claimed that there were hidden codes in the music of Jesus and the Brides of Dracula. He points to one of the brides in particular on the cover, so I'm not sure if he hooked up with her and got the message right from the source. When Sam asks who she was, he just says, just one of many. So, he might not even know who she was. Also, I get infuriated every time I see Sam take out a wad of money to buy beer or something, but he won't pay his damn rent. Balloon Girl is here now. I love how God is just holding the Jesus and the Brides of Dracula album in the background of this scene. So Sam buys yet another drink to piss me off. Sam asks Balloon Girl if she knows Sarah. She happens to know her by name, so he asks what happened to her. Balloon Girl brings him to the basement, where they're having old music night. The song Brimful of Asha is playing, which is a tribute to Indian singer Asha Bosley. We're just continuing this trend of paying tribute to celebrities from the past. She's still alive, but at the bar, the tables are tombstones of dead celebrities. Brimful of Asha also references like fake celebrities using other people's voices, which will make sense a little bit later. So Sam and Balloon Girl sit at the tombstone of Jane Mansfield, who passed away in 1967 in a car accident. She had a short film career and was a sex symbol much like Marilyn Monroe. She also captures this perfect blonde idea that Sam sees in Sarah. Balloon Girl seems very down to earth, much more than almost every other character in the movie. She doesn't know what happened to Sarah, but she knows her and her friends aren't involved, as they just enjoy the world, music, and bodies. When Sam asks her about hidden messages in the music of Jesus and the Brides of Dracula, she says that Jesus would not hide a message in a message, and that there is nothing to solve. I took offense to this because I'm over an hour into this movie and I'm still trying to figure things out. What I think this actually means is that while there are things for us and Sam to solve and decode, none of it matters. To us, this is just a movie, and we'll all wake up tomorrow doing the same stuff we did today, even if we solve everything. Same with Sam. If he solves everything, he'll just wake up tomorrow in the same life he's in. We cut to another song. This one is REM's What's the Frequency, Kenneth? I want to point out I can't play any of these songs in this video, so I'll either link the songs in the description or I'll create like a playlist that has all the songs that I mention in this video in there. There are a few things about What's the Frequency, Kenneth that are relevant to Under the Silver Lake. The cover art of the album Monster by REM kind of resembles The Owl's Kiss. I don't know if it's just me. The first lines we hear from this song are actually from the second verse, where it says, I studied your cartoons, radio, music, TV, movies, and magazines, which gives us an insight into Sam's mindset. In the music video for the song, the guitarist is actually playing Kurt Cobain's guitar. It's its own theory in itself, but the term What's the Frequency, Kenneth comes from Dan Rather being attacked in 1986 by two men asking him, Kenneth, what's the frequency? The man later claimed to have frequencies being put into his brain from his TV. This gives us another insight into the kind of mindset that Sam is in. The song is actually about a man trying so hard to figure out what motivates the younger generation, but at the end of the day, he gets nowhere. Going back to Balloon Girl's point of there being nothing to solve. Sam is also this out-of-touch drifter, so we could even see Sam in the song in that aspect. Like earlier, he asked Topher Grace where he bought his drone. Dumb things like that would imply that he's just this out-of-touch guy. So Sam and Balloon Girl dance for a bit, until Sam gets sick from the cookie. We know this because when he gets sick, she asks him how much of the cookie he ate. It turns out the cookie wasn't edible, and they must have wanted people under the influence for this secret concert, because you have to take a bite before you can get in. There's also an exact copy of the copial graffiti from earlier on the bathroom stall, once again translating to coffee menu. I'm not sure of the significance of it being in the movie twice, but it's in here nonetheless. The next song that's playing is Your Woman by Whitetown when Sam leaves the bathroom. It's about how this woman will never be the right kind of woman for this man she's talking about. On one hand, obviously Sarah and Sam are not meant to be together, so it could be about them, or it could be about Balloon Girl because she just suggested moments ago that they sleep together until Sam got sick, which resulted in her leaving. It could also be referring to women in general, because we see girls constantly coming in Sam's life and leaving once they get close. Regardless, this sequence is great, and I love how the movie uses these 3 songs to kind of push the story forward. Sam notices Troy from the White Rabbit earlier. She notices him and runs away. Rightfully so, because even though she's up to some shady stuff, she just ran into someone who followed her into the bathroom earlier. Sam passes out because of the cookie, among other substances, and wakes up in the morning to his mother calling him, telling him that she taped the Janet Gaynor film Seventh Heaven for him and was wondering if he had a VCR. As he gets off the phone, he realizes he had been passed out at the grave of Janet Gaynor. Seventh Heaven will come back towards the end of the film, and I'll explain some of the connections then. Janet Gaynor, on the other hand, I mentioned earlier how people live on long after their death, so once again, Sam's mom is making sure that Janet Gaynor will live on by taping the movie Seventh Heaven. Janet Gaynor dealt with this weird fetish that people do with young actresses in Hollywood, and being the first female to win an Oscar, was also one of the first to deal with this. There were rumors that she was in a lavender marriage, which is a marriage that is done to cover the man and woman's secret homosexuality. She even retired in 1939 at the age of 33. She eventually came back to do a few roles, but was pretty much done with film and TV, and focused on paintings. I think one reason she's so prominent in this film is because she's one of the first of her kind to deal with this weird treatment of women in Hollywood. So Sam is now hanging out with Topher Grace, who is playing Super Mario Bros. Topher Grace is actually playing a glitched level of the game called Minus World, where the level is an endless loop. While this could be David Robert Mitchell flexing his smarts about Mario, the conversation between Sam and Topher Grace is about how 100 years ago people used to be able to walk outside and find this cool new thing, but now there are no mysteries. As Topher Grace is saying this, Sam grabs the fire flower on Mario, but it's useless because he already has that power. So he finds something, but it's useless. This endless underwater level also ties into the movie's ongoing references to water and the mention of purgatory at the party earlier. Also, Mario has these pipes and underground worlds which will be relevant in the movie later on. Mario goes down the pipe, and we cut to Sam dissecting the song Turning Teeth by Jesus and the Brides of Dracula. It's almost as if he's going down the rabbit hole. Jesus and the Brides of Dracula, like we know, are the fake singers in the film, but the song was actually written by Disaster Piece and performed by Silver Sun Pickups. At first it sounds like one of those rock or pop songs about nothing, but Turning Teeth is actually referring to the teeth of a key unlocking something, or the teeth of a gear keeping a machine moving. So Turning Teeth is about the Hollywood machine and the plans that the powerful people in Hollywood have. Earlier, Sam claimed that the powerful people in Hollywood are seeing and hearing things that are meant for them. As we go through the lyrics, it'll kind of explain itself more. I want to remind you that the rich and powerful men are taking groups of 3 women into these underground bunkers. That'll come back later. The song seems to shift perspective depending on the line, but the opening line is, "You, all alone, you and I, 2 of us, turning like teeth." The way it goes out of its way to say all alone and 2 of us makes me believe that it's referring to 3 women in the Hollywood machine, turning like teeth and keeping it moving. However, the next line could make that untrue, and it's just referring to 1 man and 3 women as 2 beings, because it says Siamese, forever linked from tusk to tail, like Siamese twins. And the chorus, "You and I, tunneling beneath the skin of the city we live within." This song is literally the powerful people hiding what they're doing in a song, knowing that them and only them would understand it. The song later says, "Exploring where the cameras cannot see, you and I beneath the surface where the lovers cannot breathe." Sam later goes to underground bunkers, and this is also referring to wealthy men and their women. There's a reference to Sam and Balloon Girl dancing in this song, saying, "You and I were dancing to a song you had never heard," which is why I believe the perspective of this song changes, and is pretty much either talking about the movie or talking as the movie, if that makes sense. I initially thought the line "black hair, blonde remorse" was about Sam and Sarah, but Sam has brown hair, so I think this is about the ex-girlfriend he sees on the billboard that has black hair, and the blonde girls that he seems to like. At the end of the movie, we'll find out how much Sam actually loved this girl and wanted her back, but possibly his lust for these Marilyn Monroe-type blondes like the actress or Sarah ruined that relationship. Let our blunders be trust funders is another line I believe is about the powerful people hoping that if they mess something up and word gets out to what they're doing, hopefully it's someone like Sam who discovers it, a very powerless person without a leg to stand on. It could also refer to accidentally having a child and letting the child carry on your legacy. Sam even plays the song in reverse because it's a common conspiracy theory that artists are hiding messages backwards in their music. Stairway to Heaven is apparently satanic. Revolution 9 apparently confirmed that Paul McCartney is dead, among many others. Which, funny story, I used to listen to Nirvana backwards and thought Kurt Cobain was hinting at his death. I was such a dumb kid. While it's very possible that David Robert Mitchell and Disasterpiece did hide something backwards in the music, I think it's a case of if you look for it, you'll find it. If you're looking to hear something satanic, you'll find it in the gibberish you hear. Like, I did hear them say things like, please help, and saying Lucifer, but I can't genuinely confirm that it's there. It could just be gibberish. So Sam gets frustrated and does what anyone would do, and chokes the chicken. It's very uncomfortable watching him do this, as he's kind of just looking at this collage of women. It even includes Jefferson Sevens' daughter and wife crying about his death. But he seems to have this mindset where he gets tired of girls and always wants something new, because these aren't working. He flips the page to find an ad for the Shooting Star girls from earlier, who were actually escorts too. There's something very poetic about how this criticizes the way women are treated in Hollywood, and a young Sydney Sweeney is in this, like 2 years before she became this massive sex symbol who is objectified. However, when Sam calls, the shooting star played by Bobby Menuez shows up. Sam gets annoyed when she asks him what he does for work. I hate that question too, but I would especially hate it if I was this guy who was about to be homeless because he has no job. She comments about how expensive LA is, and how she was only in one indie movie and barely made any money, which is why she resorted to being an escort. She's surprised that Sam thinks she has money because she's an actress. I think this is David Robert Mitchell referencing, even though we see actors and actresses in movies, they're not as successful as we would think. She refers to herself as a supporting actress Academy Award winner, then the girlfriend of the lead in a sitcom, then an it girl, so she's role-playing as these different actresses and attempting to become whatever her clients want her to be. I didn't know whether to include this or not, but she has a tattoo on her thigh. I looked at the actor's Instagram and they don't seem to have this particular tattoo, but it's also on a spot that's covered, so I'm not really sure. It looks like a gun going through a rose, but I'm not entirely positive as to what it is. But it's pretty much centered in the shot, so I think it's significant, but I'm not sure. As Sam and the shooting star start to get busy, he asks her about the pirate, and she says he's anonymous. She goes to the fridge to get pizza, and this is where we see that Sam has Sarah's picture hung up on the fridge by magnets of Marilyn Monroe in the pool, hence his dream earlier. She recognizes Sarah and says she has seen her a few years ago. She was in a cube in the middle of a living room doing some performance in a Dalmatian fur bathing suit. Just take a drink every time this movie mentions dogs. There were a bunch of old men looking at her and poking at the glass. If we refer back to the comic book writer's home, he had peeps in a glass box that he called Peep Show. So he was either aware of these things, or maybe he had even been to one. The shooting star goes on to say that a producer brought her and a couple of her friends there, once again going back to the men and their 3 women. The producer makes those big action movies based off household cleaning products. Shout out to Michael Bay. They were brought to this luxurious neighborhood where they were free to roam. It was essentially one big party, and no one even really knows whose party it was. It's kind of crazy how these massive parties can just happen with all these weird and illegal activities going on, but no one really does anything about it because of how powerful these people are. David Robert Mitchell's idea for this movie came from a lot of things, but one was just looking up into the Hollywood Hills and questioning what exactly happens there, which is why we get these kind of surreal things happening. She goes on to say there was one house that they weren't allowed to go to, which was a big stone mansion bigger than all the other houses. It belonged to a man they called the Songwriter, which is our first reference to him in the film, which will lead to one of my favorite scenes ever later on. So the next day, Sam is watching his neighbor and singing Turning Teeth, and something clicks. He wrote down the lyrics to Turning Teeth in a pizza box. The previous night, the shooting star wanted to eat pizza. I'm not going to get into all the symbolism with pizza, but it's very possible that David Robert Mitchell knew what he was doing with all this pizza stuff going on in these couple scenes. He counts the letters in each word to the lyrics of Turning Teeth, and we get like this ultimate code-breaking montage that I absolutely love. Sam holds the pizza box up with his feet, and I just want to point out that Andrew Garfield is a prime candidate for ingrown toenails. Sam picks out the amount of letters in each word to the lyrics of Turning Teeth. So you would be 3, all would be 3, alone would be 5, and so on. He matches that to the next song by Jesus and the Brides of Dracula. So, like, he picks the third letter, the third letter, the fifth letter, the third letter, the third, the first, and so on. This is in their other song called Surrounded by a Dove. I hope I'm making sense by explaining this, but hopefully the pictures and videos I'm showing will clarify this a little bit better. Every letter that he ended up picking out from this song spells out rub Dean's head and wait under Newton. After going through a list of famous Deans, he looks down at his neighbor, and remember when I said that the bird is saying always up? Well, Sam looks up and sees the Griffith Observatory, where there is a statue of James Dean's head. It's also in the James Dean film Rebel Without a Cause. This weird gasp Sam does is exactly how I sound when I figure out something about this movie. The shirt Sam is wearing has artwork by Emanuel Taglietti of Wallenstein the Monster. On one hand, it could be Sam's mindset of him saving a girl, but if we look closer, this blonde woman is actually bound and gagged and being held by a monster. The monster was actually murdered and was resurrected, but now is a mutant creature. He wears a mask and lives a double life as Jimmy and a vigilante who fights criminals. Pretty much like an Italian Batman. But this goes back to Sam having posters of movies like The Wolfman and Psycho. He has two sides of him, the weird loner Sam and the dog killer. So Sam goes here, he rubs James Dean's head, and he waits under the statue of Isaac Newton. I actually wonder how many people have gone here just to rub Dean's head and wait under Newton. I believe Newton was chosen because he actually believed in hidden codes in the Bible that hinted at the end of the world. He also believed in hidden messages in the pyramids as well. After waiting a bit, we meet the homeless king who meets with Sam and says he saw him rubbing the statue. The whistle that I mentioned earlier is here, which could imply that what we're seeing isn't actually what happened and is just in Sam's head. There are theories about how the homeless king is just a police officer, which is very possible. The whistling and the way no one really notices this weird king walking around makes me think that that is the case, and I'll explain it as we go. He blindfolds Sam, and Sam surprisingly goes along with it. He points out Sam's bad smell, which I believe to be him just being weirded out by the guy rubbing statues. So I can't take credit for this theory, and I don't even know if it's true, but I love it. They walk past a family singing Happy Birthday, and in this weird anti-Hollywood movie, it feels like it's a big middle finger, because in 2016 the Happy Birthday song became public domain and out of the hands of Warner Brothers. It kind of seems like David Robert Mitchell was like, see, we can use it now. So they pass by a coyote, and the homeless king gives Sam the advice to follow a coyote if he ever comes across one and see where it takes him. Coyotes are wild dogs, obviously, and you could assume they're the homeless version of dogs, referring to the homeless king leading Sam. The homeless king guides Sam to these underground tunnels. He can't tell him where he is, but he sends him on his way. So Sam begins tunneling beneath the skin of the city we live within. See what I did there? We hear that whistle in the score once again, possibly confirming that this isn't 100% real. It probably comes from Sam's love of video games, especially because the pipes from Mario are on the ceiling here. Sam comes across a door which has an all-seeing eye above it, a common symbol among conspiracy theories. What's in this room is like a bomb shelter. Well, not really. Sam thinks it is, but we later find out it's an ascension chamber for these rich and powerful men and their 3 women. Sam climbs out of these caves to get to a milk cooler in the grocery store. We're continuing on with these things not entirely happening as we see them. I believe he actually found some kind of secret, or might have been arrested, but he didn't necessarily find this underground bunker. But I think it led to this rebirth and awakening, which could have explained the milk, like a newborn baby drinking milk. Am I going nuts? Maybe. I honestly haven't been able to wrap my head around the bomb shelter because later it's confirmed that it is real, but I also don't believe that the events actually unfolded as we saw them. There's also this very weird tonal shift back to the comic book writer's home. It's very bizarre how we go from the milk cooler to this. It's like we're going from this dream state to reality. We find out that the writer had offed himself. And like Sam says, when we saw him earlier, he didn't really seem to be in that state. After the police leave, Sam is able to break into the comic book writer's home, which is our first hint that someone else probably killed him. Keep in mind, the windows were barred up, but if Sam was able to sneak in, then someone more capable would have probably been able to as well. Plus, the bars are literally bent, which means somebody was in here. I think because it was self-inflicted, the police didn't really investigate the scene very well, because they didn't find the hidden room where the camera feeds lead to. Remember, the comic book writer told Sam that no one would get in and out of his house without him knowing. David Robert Mitchell gets back to his horror ways when we discover that the Owl's Kiss is more than just a comic book and broke into this man's house and murdered him. The Owl's Kiss is played by Karen Nitschke, I think I said that right, who has no other roles, but the way she walks and acts is freaking haunting. I'll get back to the Owl's Kiss and all my theories on her later on. Sam calls his friend Alan asking for a way to talk to Jesus. And as he's walking, there are dogs barking at Sam. It's a common belief that dogs can sense bad vibes, so like how people are complaining about his smell the whole movie, and how the smell actually means his aura and vibes, the dogs also don't like the vibes that Sam gives off. So Alan brings him to a party with women and chess. This kind of looks and feels like an old party you would see in an old movie. And it's a very small world because the Shooting Stars, Balloon Girl, and Jesus and the Brides of Dracula are all here. Literally all of our players in the movie. Sam follows Jesus into the bathroom. He rips him off the toilet, and the camera lingers on the toilet. And here I am trying to figure out what Jesus' feces mean. Well, one, I think it's a reference to the movie The Holy Mountain, where there is a scene where they take Jesus' feces and turn it to gold. Hence the gold flakes. I don't really think there's any other deeper meaning to it, other than the movie telling us that Jesus is full of shit. Jesus being full of shit plays into the fact that he didn't even write his own hits. When Sam beats him up, he asks about the codes in Turning Teeth, and Jesus confesses that the label gave him the song as well as his other hits, like the classic Wire Mountains and the impeccable waltz of the Christian Shit Farmers. So yeah, we find out that Jesus didn't write his own hits. It's not confirmed if he wrote the song Surrounded by a Dove, which is like the companion to finding the code to Turning Teeth. I would assume he didn't. Jesus says that he would lose his contract if he didn't record the songs, and it was an important piece of music written by the songwriter. So the Shooting Stars are here, which is who first confirmed that the songwriter exists. So Sam asks them to bring him to the home of the songwriter, and without questions, they do it. The Shooting Stars, Balloon Girl, and Sam recreate this 3 women to 1 man ratio that has been all over the film. The 3 women reveal that they're roommates, they work together, and they're shooting stars. This is actually the first time it's mentioned that Balloon Girl is also an actress. She was in a soap opera from the ages 5 to 6 months, and the music cue and Sam's reaction draw attention to this. Like, it's weird that a baby that young would be on a TV show, but that's just the nature of the business. Speaking of weird, the girls just leave Sam after he climbs a trash can and jumps this wall to this weird town. If I had to guess, I'm assuming this town is what David Robert Mitchell was thinking about when he looked up into the Hollywood Hills and questioned what went on up there. Like, this is the source, and everything just bleeds out from here. There's a beautiful matte painting as Sam is approaching the songwriter's home. It was done by Maurizio Gamelli from the visual effects company 22 Dogs. It has to be a coincidence because David Robert Mitchell worked with this company for his previous film It Follows, but it's such a weird coincidence in this movie that seems to go out of its way to talk about dogs that his company would be 22 Dogs. I feel like we don't get enough matte paintings in films anymore, and it's just great to see. Like Denis Villeneuve, he uses miniatures in Blade Runner 2049 and Dune. I love how directors use practical things we don't see as often anymore. The script says that the songwriter's home is reminiscent to Hearst's Castle, which was a castle owned by William Randolph Hearst. He hosted large parties in this area and was a newspaper publisher known for these exaggerated stories that he would publish. Citizen Kane is actually based on him, as he's portrayed as this power-hungry Charles Foster Kane. Sam walks by music notes which actually play the theme from It Follows created by Disaster Piece, which is one of my favorite Easter eggs. So Sam just wanders into the songwriter's home, and it's almost as if he's expecting Sam, and he tells him to come inside. The songwriter is just sitting at a piano surrounded by instruments. He's played by Jeremy Bobb, who is actually a lot younger than the way the songwriter looks. I'm glad they casted someone a lot younger and did this makeup job, because it's not necessarily the best makeup job, but it just adds to this like dreamlike feel that this scene has. Like, the makeup is good, but there's also a fakeness to it. The homeless king told Sam to follow the coyotes, and conveniently enough, the songwriter has a stuffed coyote in this room, so this is essentially where Sam is destined to be. Sam notices that he has Kurt Cobain's guitar, and the songwriter actually doesn't even recognize it. He just says that it's probably Cobain's, but he has so much stuff. This is as supernatural as the movie goes, because the songwriter claims to have written pretty much every song from every era, but I think it's explainable enough to kind of keep it grounded. The songwriter is just a title that a songwriter is given, so when the previous one dies, the next one just takes over the mantle. But they're all serving the same people and the same purpose, so they're pretty much all the same person. He says he doesn't always know what the message is, but he just passes it along. Songs from Jump to I Want It That Way, to the Cheers theme song, to Smells Like Teen Spirit, to Beethoven's Ode to Joy were all written by the songwriter. And since they weren't written by their respective artists, we have to wonder if they have any meaning at all. Sam, being a big Nirvana and Kurt Cobain fan, starts crying at the realization that the grunge movement that Nirvana started wasn't actually started by Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. The songwriter says that when you were 15 and rebelling, you were rebelling to his music. He wrote Smells Like Teen Spirit between a blowjob and an omelet. There is no rebellion, only him earning a paycheck. God, this scene is one of my favorite scenes ever made. When Sam says he doesn't believe him, the songwriter just tells him good, because it's not meant for him, and Sam is supposed to just dance to the music. The way the camera zooms in on the songwriter's face as he's saying, your art and your writing and your culture is the shell of other men's ambition hits so hard because it's like he's speaking to the audience. The songwriter laughs in Sam's face and pulls out a gun to shoot him. I think he's doing this because Sam now knows too much. The girls were told not to go to this house, and now that Sam is here, he has to be killed, but he dodges the bullets, and we finally see Sam snap as he gets to the songwriter with the Kurt Cobain guitar and kills him. And it's a brutal, drawn-out kill, and I believe it's shot this way because it's to show that Sam has killed before. He's not shy or hesitant, and he's definitely killed somebody before. I have a couple theories about the songwriter scene that could very well be possible, but I'm not entirely sure. One being that this was another scene like the tunnels that Sam didn't actually experience. I think it's possible because it has a similar transition to the next scene as that did. Like earlier, there was that transition from Sam going to the milk cooler to the comic book writer's home, and here there's a weird transition from him being with the songwriter to just standing on his balcony. That would also explain why the songwriter seemed to be supernatural and has lived for generations. In reality, he's just the embodiment of pop culture, and he's not real. The second theory is less likely, that the songwriter is supposed to be a stand-in for the devil. This would also explain some of the supernatural stuff, and why when Sam tells him he has everything, he actually says he doesn't, because the devil doesn't have full control of the world. I used to believe this theory, but not so much anymore. Nonetheless, just a phenomenal scene and one of my favorites ever. Andrew Garfield and Jeremy Bobb are freaking fantastic. So a scene from Invasion of the Body Snatchers is used as kind of a warning to Sam and everyone else, and it could represent Sam's mindset of warning everyone. It's Dr. Miles warning people about how they're after us, and they're already here, and he says, you're next, and it cuts to Sam hearing a noise in the middle of the night. And oh my goodness, it's one of the scariest things I've ever seen, as the owl's kiss creeps out of the kitchen. The owl's kiss follows Sam with a knife in her hand. He catches her, she runs away into a bedroom, and disappears into thin air, and then a cop shows up to kick Sam out of his apartment for not paying his rent. And that's it. No big reveal on who the owl's kiss is. That's it. Now, I have two theories on the owl's kiss. Despite being played by Karen Nietzsche, I think is how you say it, myself and many others have thought about the possibility of her being Balloon Girl. They have a similar physique, and it would explain her weird movements since Balloon Girl is a dancer. It's kind of a big stretch to reach this conclusion, but since the comic book writer wrote that the Owl's Kiss is a member of a long-standing American cult with origins to trade and finance, that could actually be referring to the cult of men who take women to these underground tombs. Maybe Balloon Girl and the two shooting stars either got out of the cult or are trying to get out of the cult, and they're killing rich and powerful men and those who try to expose the Owl's Kiss, like the writer and Sam. The other theory I have, which I think is more likely, is that the Owl's Kiss is just a symbol for powerful people, or the Bohemian Grove, who are a bunch of rich and powerful people with origins to trade and finance. Since Sam discovered the bunker, the songwriter, hidden codes, among other things, they could be just trying to get rid of him. At the end of the day, like the songwriter said, it's all meaningless. Especially because the Owl's Kiss never comes back into the movie. And that's it. That's the Owl's Kiss. The whistle that I referenced earlier is also played backwards at the end of this scene with the Owl's Kiss. So instead of symbolizing, hey, this is symbolic, I think here it's symbolizing, hey, this was symbolic. I love this kind of like parody take on the noir genre. Everywhere you go, there's a bunch of dead ends. Also, Sam should be relieved to see that the police are here, considering that a creepy woman in an owl mask is in his house and vanished, but he's actually irritated that the police are here. Sam is almost kicked out of his house, but somehow convinces the sheriff to give him 2 more days to pay his rent because apparently he's really close to getting the money, which we know he's not. The sheriff has the name tag Barnes, which is where people have chosen the name Barnes for the Tombstone Sheriff entries code earlier. Sam notices a coyote rummaging through the trash, and follows the advice of the homeless king, and follows the coyote. The coyote leads him to a big party where Millicent Sevens is at. What I think is interesting is that the coyote keeps on moving, and Sam stops, so the coyote could very well not be leading him to this party, and Sam just happened to stumble here and assume that it was meant for him. Over the past few scenes where we kind of question if what we're seeing is actually happening to our unreliable narrator, we have to remember that Sam is not important. Sam walks into this party, and a woman compliments his shirt despite it just being a plain white shirt. Sam is among the rich people in LA, and they appreciate him for walking in as just himself. Millicent Sevens' dress also has the keep quiet sign on it, so among rich and powerful people, she's telling them to keep quiet. Or perhaps she doesn't even recognize that it's a code. As Sam is walking through the party, we hear some indistinguishable dialogue, and then it lingers on dialogue of a man talking about a 12-year-old who wrote, produced, directed, and sound designed her own sitcom. I think this kind of references Sam's thoughts toward Hollywood, like perhaps he's aged out. That's why he's always struggling so much. We even learned that Balloon Girl was in a sitcom when she was 5 months old. The Hollywood machine would rather choose youth over this 33-year-old man. Sam's ex-girlfriend is also here, who was on the billboard, and she introduces Sam to her new fiancé. He just replies great and mentions seeing her on the billboard. She's doing even better than we thought, because she has multiple billboards. They go their separate ways, and Sam sees Millicent Sevens looking at a painting by Janet Gaynor, which I mentioned how she retired from acting and began painting, so it's neat to see how other art that she created is also living on long after her death too. Sam says that he was friends with the girl who died with her dad, and then she asks Sam if he knows anything. I'm assuming he spilled his entire journey to her off screen, and it cuts to her asking what it all means. He says he can't quite see, but he's close. They walk by the Silver Lake Reservoir, past many more missing dog posters, and Millicent says they shouldn't be out, which is why I think dogs are representing women, because she's afraid of a dog killer. However, Sam assures her that they're safe because they don't have a dog, which could just be a throwaway line that he says. I think in reality, they're safe because he's the one killing the dogs. There's a statue for a dog named Spot among the missing posters. If we go to the credits, there are tombstones for dogs in there, but Spot's tombstone says 1981 to 2029. While I wish dogs would live to be 48 years old, they don't. So once again, I'm thinking that dogs are just a stand-in for women. I really want to reiterate that I believe that a lot of the final hour of the movie does not actually happen, and it's coming from the perspective of an unreliable narrator. Not in a bad way though, but in like a Fight Club way where it really works. Millicent tells him someone who kills dogs would have no problem killing people, and he says he's not sure if that's true. The most sense I can make out of this is that Sam never started killing dogs, and he just went straight for people. Like, he doesn't see the connection from dogs to people like Millicent does. Millicent and Sam hold hands, and it seems like she's into him, but we later find out that this is a front to get him to follow her into the reservoir. A homeless man asks Sam for money. Sam says no, and the homeless man snaps on him. This causes Sam to vent to Millicent about how he hates homeless people, and thinks that we shouldn't have to take care of them. He compares them to ghosts and says they just float around the peripherals of society. But this stems from the hatred that Sam has of himself. Little success, lost his girlfriend, and is about to be homeless himself. Millicent even suggests that Sam just give the guy $1 next time, and then suggests that they swim in the Silver Lake Reservoir. They skinny dip, and Millicent tells Sam that she thinks she's being followed, and wanted to make it look like they were going to screw in the reservoir. Sam is disappointed by this, but Millicent gives him a bracelet from her father, inscribed with NPM 135 to 37, H6 to G4. This will be important in a few minutes. Suddenly, someone starts shooting at them and kills Millicent. Millicent's body replicates the Playboy issue that Sam was obsessed with, which leads me to believe that Sam actually killed her. This happens pretty much right after she turns him down for sex, which we've established that Sam is the dog killer and is actually killing women, so we can assume that he might react violently if turned down like this. Plus the shot replicating the Playboy magazine, his earliest fantasy, makes me think that he's creating this weird vision of her being shot. So Sam runs home naked, and I have no idea where the police are in this town. Like, no wonder the dog killer is still loose. This man is running naked through the streets. So in the morning, Sam is staring at the bracelet Millicent gave him, trying to figure out what H6 to G4 means. He marks it on a chessboard, and I frickin' love scenes of people just kind of solving things, and that's exactly what we get here. First, we have to find out what NPM 135 to 37 means. This is actually the first time anyone uses the internet to look up codes in this movie. I used to think that David Robert Mitchell was making some commentary about how it's easier to hide things in magazines and TV shows, but he claims it just works better on film to show somebody looking through files or magazine. So NPM could mean a lot of things. We see National Poetry Month, new page master, node package manager, and a bunch of other things. Pretty much whatever you think NPM could mean, there's something involved in it. For Sam, NPM 1 means Nintendo Power Magazine Issue 1, which he happens to have a stack of. Hey Sam, maybe you should sell these and pay your rent. So page 35 to 37 of Issue 1 of Nintendo Power Magazine is a map from The Legend of Zelda, which, hot take here, of all the original Nintendo franchises like Mario, Donkey Kong, and Zelda, The Legend of Zelda has aged the worst. Now, the new Zelda games I love, but I don't like the original one. Anyway, the separate screens from the Zelda map are marked A through P and 1 through 8. We mark off H6 and G4. It leads to a dead end at first, but Sam hears some kids playing Marco Polo in the pool, which reminds him of the comic book writer. His address was 1492, the year America was discovered, and Marco Polo was an explorer, so I think this is just a reference of exploring things and kind of makes Sam connect the dots. Sam remembers the Space Stone cereal and how the comic book writer mentioned that the map holds all the secrets. He takes out the map and lines it up with the Zelda map, and it fits perfectly. H6 to G4 is actually the Silver Lake Reservoir to Mount Hollywood. Weirdly enough, in the script, the code is C3 to E6, and I tried to mark this off on the map in the brief shot that the Zelda map is shown, and it's the Beverly Hills Hotel to the Hollywood Freeway, which I don't really think means much, although the frame from Zelda, it's a cave, so it could be referring to the tombs and the bunkers. But the script says that C3 to E6 is Silver Lake Reservoir to Mount Hollywood, but I think the chess moves were changed for a reason. C3 to E6 isn't actually a legal move in chess, but H6 to G4 is legal, but it can only be achieved by the knight, so this could symbolize how Sam is kind of becoming the hero of the story now. A bit out there, and my chess knowledge is limited, but that's what I'm going with. So anyway, Google Maps blocks out any satellite image of this location, so Sam actually goes there, and is greeted by the hobo code for "This is not a safe place," but that doesn't stop Sam from proceeding. The hobo code is coincidentally the logo for the app WhatThreeWords, which we've talked about a few times already. We hear the whistling once again, hinting that what we're seeing could actually not be reality, which is kind of where I'm leaning towards. It would explain a lot of the crazy steps Sam took to even discover this location. And the hobo code is simply just there because it's a dangerous mountain. Like, what are the odds that NPM means Nintendo Power Magazine and Sam happens to have it? Slim to none. So Sam comes across a hut, and inside he finds a man who the script refers to as Final Man, and the 3 girls that Sam was following earlier. Sam addresses them about the death of Sarah, the codes in the music, and the bunker. But they correct him and say that the bunkers are actually tombs for kings, like the Final Man and Jefferson Sevens. The tombs aren't for death, they're for ascension, and they're going to a place very exclusive. It's very culty talk here. He says that great men throughout history have participated in this ceremony, and this brings me back to David Robert Mitchell wondering what goes on in the hills of Hollywood. Like, there's just something so mythical about it that you think things like this would happen up there. The tombs don't really make sense because these people are sealed in and only have like 6 months of supplies, and then they just wait to ascend. When Sam asks if they killed Sarah, they have a picture of her with the 2 other women and Jefferson Sevens in the same white gowns as these cult members. Sarah is holding the How to Marry a Millionaire dolls in a different order from when we saw them earlier, so this is where the theory came from to place the 3 words in different orders. So is it Sheriff Tombstone Entries? What is it? It gets very morbid here, where the Final Man says that the crash where Jefferson Sevens was found, they only found his teeth, some of his skin, and all of his organs that he can live without. So this idea of this toothless man without a bunch of his organs living in a tomb with 3 women just creeps me out. They're actually able to call Sarah in the tombs, but they only have incoming calls because people in the past have tried to escape. So this is the first mention of some people being involved in these ceremonies might be doing it against their will. So they get Sarah on a video call, and there's an episode of Leave It to Beaver playing in the background, and it's an episode involving a dog. I believe Beaver finds a chihuahua and hides it from his parents. I absolutely love this kind of like dry twist in this movie where Sarah and Sam talk, and she's confused as to why he's even looking for her. The way Sam has been obsessed with her, you would think they would have like this big reconnection, but she's confused and just says, "You hardly know me." And you can see Sam quickly realizing that he's not as important to her as he thought. I absolutely love this twist, even though I guess it really isn't one, because it destroys the neo-noir elements that this movie has established. Sam isn't this big hero, and Sarah, the femme fatale actually isn't one. She's just a girl who left. And the final man even tells him that the tomb is covered in concrete, so she can't be saved. There's no need to upset her. Sarah asks Sam if he thinks that she made a mistake, and he says he doesn't know. The music starts to get uplifting, and she says there's no way out, so she might as well make the best of it. And Sam looks up at the Hollywood sign, as if that message was also for him. He's stuck in this life, so he might as well make the best of it. I really like this, uplifting score that plays in this scene. It's also kind of this, melancholy feel. Like Sam is coming to terms that he means nothing to Sarah. Meanwhile, Sarah is making the best out of her situation. She asks him if he thought about getting a new dog, because some unconditional love would be good for him. This small talk really captures how they really don't know each other very well, like Sarah said. And they just kind of say bye and go their separate ways. I think it ties into what the songwriter was saying about how all of this is meaningless, and how he was talking to the audience in that one shot. There really is no deep meaning, and Sam wasn't the hero he thought he was. The final man goes on to deliver a similar message, saying that this world isn't anything that anyone with any sense would want to stay in. We win a 2 weeks vacation, a new car, and some money to retire on. Everything we care about is useless where they're going. But this line is also ironic, because he's just going down into a tomb to starve, so everything is useless, I guess. The score here is like that whistling, where it might not be real, but it's also kind of loud and distorted, which I think is because the tea that everyone has been drinking in this scene was laced, and all 5 of them pass out. The homeless king is back, which is why I think the whistle actually signaled that this isn't real. The homeless king comes out of a trapdoor in the ground and says he found Sam by his smell. I'm 100% now on board with him being a police officer, especially here, because he already had Sam under arrest and could have been suspicious of him being back on his bullshit, which is what he meant by following his smell. Keep in mind the bad smell is like this aura and bad vibes. He brings Sam to a room, which I take it to be as like this interrogation room. And if you don't think the previous sound was a whistle, well, it's definitely here. The homeless king tells Sam that the man and the 3 girls are waking up in their ascension chamber. He confronts Sam for having dog biscuits in his pocket, something a dog killer would definitely be carrying on him. Seriously, this movie could not make it any clearer that Sam is the dog killer and I will die on this hill. Sam says that he used to love a girl with a dog and she stopped loving him. He was waiting for her to take him back, and he would eventually give the dog a treat and rub its ears. It's a very kind of personal look into the mindset of Sam, and explains why he's the dog killer, or woman killer, or whatever you want to call it. How in the comic book, the actor blamed the dog for his failures as an actor, Sam blames women for his failures. And it's all but confirmed the woman he's talking about is the woman who is on the billboards. I guess you could make a case that he's referring to Sarah, but their short time knowing each other, and the previous scene where she literally says, "You hardly know me," makes me think that he's referring to the woman on the billboard. The homeless king lets him go, and it's very much like Eyes Wide Shut, where he warns Sam to not mention any of this to anyone. He also says they might kill him, but he's not sure, which I thought was very funny. Sam goes up the stairs into the world, and I think this is a symbol for his ascension. How the final man and his 3 women were ascending, and going wherever they're going, Sam is ascending to like a new life as well. The script differs a bit here and features some internal thoughts, like Sam wondering if he should turn into Kevin McCarthy from Invasion of the Body Snatchers and warn everybody what happened, but he doesn't. It also mentions that Madonna's Express Yourself is playing, particularly the lyrics about a man making her feel like a queen on a throne and loving her until she can't come down. More commentary on ascending and worshipping women. In the movie, there's like a montage of different songs playing as cars drive past, which I think is just showing us how many songs are out there and hiding messages that were mentioned earlier on. And here we see that Sam is watching a billboard with his ex-girlfriend on it, being covered up by a knockoff McDonald's billboard with a hamburger on it. The comic writer mentioned earlier how hidden messages for the powerful people are as common as tits and hamburgers, which is why I think the music is heard as Sam is looking up at the billboard of a woman and a hamburger. Sam walks home, passes the coffee shop with the dog killer graffiti on it. Clearly that woman did a bad job of cleaning it. There's a large keep quiet code painted in Sam's living room, which I think happened when he was gone, so this cult, or whoever, are warning him to keep quiet. Plus his mail from his mother is already in his house. I believe it's hinted that somebody was already here and did this. I saw someone say that Sam had red paint in his apartment, and I searched the background and a ton of shots of his house, and I couldn't find it. If we're approaching this movie from the unreliable narrator aspect, we have to assume that he did put the code here and it wasn't this cult. Sam also bought orange juice and saltine crackers from the store, which were Sarah's favorite snack. If I'm taking anything positive from this ending, between the snacks and the fact that he's watching the videotape that his mom sent him, I think he might have a newfound respect for women, even though he already killed some. On top of snacks, he might have even bought a VCR, because I didn't see one earlier when I was scouring his shelves, but there's one here. But he still won't pay his rent. He's watching the movie Seventh Heaven, and a scene where Janet Gaynor is talking about how she's not used to being happy is playing. There's a shot of the coffee table, which has been a conversation amongst a lot of people. It's like a highlight of all the things we've used throughout the movie. Super Mario Brothers, the Silver Lake map, the comic book, Nintendo Power Magazine, Millicent's bracelet, Jesus and the Brides of Dracula's album, the Codebreakers book, the famous Playboy issue. I thought the 3 books up top were very interesting. There's one about the silent film era in California, a book called Subliminal Seduction, which is about how the media uses sex and violence to manipulate human behavior, which is obviously a big theme in the movie, and one about the I-5 killer, which has no ties to the movie except for the murder part. I think this is just a subtle way of saying that Sam is in fact a murderer. The transition from Sam being watched by his favorite Playboy issue to the gun and the picture of Sarah had me wondering if Sam was contemplating offing himself, which is possible, but I think it's just that he's paranoid because the homeless king told him that they might kill him. I think that's why he has a gun. Also, the owl's kiss could come at any moment, and who needs that? Another one of the many unsolved mysteries in the film is what the bird is saying. I talked about it very early on. It's never confirmed, but it's probably saying always up. And this comes from Sam watching the film Seventh Heaven. The words never look down, always look up appear on the screen, and then the parrot yells for the final time. There were many things referring to looking up in the movie, like looking up at the neighbor and not down at Sarah, looking up to the billboard of his ex-girlfriend, the idea of ascending. I even actually watched Seventh Heaven to try to catch any references or similarities to Under the Silver Lake, and surprisingly I can't find much. There's a romance plot in both movies, but I don't really consider that a connection. But Janet Gaynor's character is a prostitute who finds love, so there could be a connection because in this movie we have the shooting stars, who are also prostitutes. The main character in Seventh Heaven is a sewer worker, which could be referring to the tunnels in Under the Silver Lake. Honestly, everything about Seventh Heaven seems like a bit of a stretch. Like I mentioned earlier, I think Seventh Heaven being so prominent in this movie is more so a red herring and an acknowledgement or celebration of classic cinema and Janet Gaynor. So Sam also uses the parrot yelling as a sign to sleep with his neighbor, who he's been creeping on. She points out that he smells like a flower, so I think he's kind of shedded all that negative aura through this experience. I truly hope that he's not the serial killer because it is kind of an uplifting ending in that sense. His new life continues as he watches the landlord and police coming into his house from the neighbor's balcony to evict him. So Sam is now homeless. Despite saying that he hates the homeless, he is now one of them. In a movie that referenced The Shining and Eyes Wide Shut, the movie ends on the Kubrick stare as Sam stares directly into the camera. The song Strange Currencies by REM plays over the credits. The opening lyrics of the song, "I don't know why you're mean to me when I call on the telephone," I believe to reference Sam's final conversation with Sarah, which was over the phone. The song is also about an obsessed man trying to win a woman back, which is Sam's entire identity pretty much. The credits feature a code which is very easy to decipher. It's random letters, but if you go up just one letter, we get a David Robert Mitchell film, Under the Silver Lake. Just a fun code in the credits. I love the artwork in the credits. It's like the style that was in a couple of the animated parts of the film, and it's full of things from the movie. Speaking of, it's probably a good time to mention that on the poster for this movie there were a ton of hidden images. The poster features a woman in a lake, very similar to the Playboy issue. At the bottom we could see Andrew Garfield's face in the trees. In the bubbles above the woman, we could see a cross that says Jesus Saves, which is from The Party, the pirate, James Dean, the Keep Quiet sign, a guitar, the homeless king, and an owl. And in her hair it reads sex, which reminds me of the hidden things that people find in Disney movies. So yeah, my takeaway from this movie is that it's from Sam's point of view, and he's an unreliable narrator, which is a deadly combination. I think his search for meaning and purpose led him to think that there was something very massive for him to discover, and that he would be the hero of the story, but he's not. Rather than being a part of the world, he decided to create his own with conspiracies and underground bunkers and tombs, and he justified his obsessions with movies and games by using it as a way to discover the truth that wasn't even there. While you could make a case for it being an unsatisfying ending, that's ultimately the purpose. We're told many times throughout the movie that everything is meaningless, and there are no mysteries to discover anymore. so Sam creates his own. It's also reflecting how we observe the film, because we could search for answers to who the owl's kiss is, who the pirate is, and if there actually is an underground cult, but it doesn't matter because we'll never know for sure. Under the Silver Lake is the ultimate anti-noir film. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. Every comment and like means the world to me, so please tell me any thoughts you have on this video or this movie, and we could discuss all of your thoughts. If I ended up missing anything massive, or if something else catches my eye, I might make a follow-up video, but nothing nearly as long as this. Honestly, after this, I think I'm almost done with Under the Silver Lake, unless, like I said, something catches my eye. I'll make like a small follow-up video, but nothing as massive as this. I have 2 videos planned next. Either one on The Beast, directed by Bertrand Bonello, which I believe is one of the most important films of the decade, or the Thorn trilogy from the Halloween franchise, which are 2 vastly different video ideas, but we'll see. Anyways, I'll stop rambling. I'll leave all my social medias in the description. Please follow me and interact with me on there. Thank you so much, and beware the dog killer.